we heard Adrian Boafo. We also heard Steny Hoyer. Talk about an endorsement, right? This is also, I guess, Steny Hoyer's moment, and we should, acknowledge that he's been there for more than 4 decades. Ronald Reagan was president when he
sure was.
When he joined Congress. What do you make of this moment for him?
So I'm glad you mentioned that. They were both elected in the same year, 1980. Mm-hmm. And I should note, and he alluded to this a bit in his remarks, you may have noticed he mentioned black voters and
Prince George's
in
County specifically.
Well, when his district was first cut, it was in the county. That was it. And it wasn't until the mid-90s that his district was sort of moved further east. So he's had a long and deep and rich connection to the state, to the district, to that part of the state. And so it was really good to see him give sort of a valedictory speech as he was heading out. And given their relationship, I want to make a slight prediction. So seniority really is the big deal in Congress. The longer you're there, the more seniority you get, and that gives you an opportunity to get plus committee assignments. Well, it is not unusual for senior members of Congress who've been around for a really long time to resign a little early. So their successor, who they endorse, in this case Boafo, he's sort of mentored Boafo in some ways. I would not be surprised if in November or December he calls it a career a little early to allow Boafo the opportunity to be sworn in early, serve in this particular term, and have a leg up, even just a short one, on all those candidates who are elected for the first time in November, but start in January. Yes. So that really is a way to serve your congressional district on the way out. Now this is technical stuff, it's in the weeds, I got all that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. They clearly have a wonderful relationship, and it's great to see two very different people who all have similarities in their stories, and given Hoyer's reputation, I could see that pretty easily.
I was struck by him saying, obviously we know America is deeply divided and he believes that Boafo could be a light, but he said this is a passing of a baton to a new generation, right? Something that Democrats have been talked about quite a bit for not doing, for not setting up the next generation for success. Steny Hoyer seemed to be saying, I'm going to use all of my political capital, everything I have left, to ensure that Adrian Boafo has the best start.
Yeah, I think that's well put. I think it was a full-throated endorsement by Steny Hoyer. It's kind of ironic in a way that the endorsement also brought the heat, I think, that Boafo experienced a lot of, because mostly through kind of the AIPAC support that Steny brought along, right? Has been a big supporter. The Steny Hoyer, along with AIPAC, they've had a great relationship over the past, 40 years or so. It is really nice to see in that moment that they do have a real personable relationship, and there seems to be a lot of mutual respect there, which is nice. It's also very interesting in this race, again, because of how crowded it was. Reflecting on some of the figures and whatever they'll be in the final count, because there are so many other opponents, you start to question how well that Steny endorsement might have played if there were fewer opponents to Adrian Boafo, if there was someone that was kind of the alternative to what we would probably call it Boafo, like the establishment. New generation, yes, but kind of the establishment, traditional Democrat, at least on paper, kind of a one-to-one replacement for Steny Hoyer, right? That gives voters some reliability, which is nice going into the future, but it also very clearly dismisses the more progressive approach that in this particular race was spread out over multiple candidates. So we could have ended up very well with a very different story today if it weren't for the crowded field.
Yeah, but it seemed to be in this case, after serving for more than 4 decades, for Hoyer, the guy that you endorsed won. Yeah. That says a lot about his legacy as well, I take it, yeah?
It really does.
Yeah, I think Hoyer is going out on a high. Yeah. In a time in which there are long-serving incumbents who are staying too long or are losing in their last election, Steny Hoyer gets to go out on his own terms, literally pick his successor, and then ride off into the sunset. And so I think he has served as an example on how to move on. Now, look, 45 years is a long time.
I was going to say, wait.
All that pent up demand over 45 years.
If you want to make the case that perhaps he could have done this a few years ago, fine. I'm not going to, I'm not prepared to argue against that. But I will say he did it in a way that I think will serve as an example going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This is ending on a pretty high note for Steny Hoyer after a long career, very well known and well liked in the state of Maryland, generally speaking, but also leadership in the party. Like, he's made a big impact on national politics over the past several decades. And so, you know, as again, the crowded field might have threatened that kind of storybook ending, but I think he got it tonight, which is sort of nice to see, just the full circle moment.
How effective can he really be in this role? You know, I think of where Steny Hoyer's been, how long he's been there, but the Congress that he's walking into, Adrian Boafo, you know, this is changing.
He said it's a very challenged situation here.
Yeah.
Standing up to Trump and also lowering costs.
There is no reason to have high expectations. And that's not because
Of
him.
Adrian Boafo or of any politician?
Any first-term member of the House.
Yes.
They go into on the bottom of the list in seniority. They're trying to build relationships across the institution. It takes time. It's a very difficult job. And oh, by the way, you're in the minority party, right? Now, in November, all of the evidence says that the Democrats will recapture the House. And if that's the case, it will be slightly easier. Right. But as a backbench, really inexperienced member, there's no reason to expect anything approaching what Steny Hoyer is leaving on. Because remember, he's been in that job for 45 years. He knows every corner of that place. He knows how to get things done. And so Boafo is going to need to learn quickly. He's going to be given an opportunity to do that. He's going in with the hand stamp of Steny Hoyer, and I think that's going to be very helpful. There are going to be members of Congress who say, you know, Steny was my guy, you're Steny's successor, you know, and that kind of personal stuff matters in the legislative process. And so I think he has great potential. I also think that we need to pump the brakes on any major expectations right now.
Well, we know